Hi there everybody, so today we're continuing with our journey through World War I, and we have one of the biggest battles prior to the Second World War, and it's the Battle of the Somme in 1916. This video is presented by Epic History TV, as we are going through their series of World War I. And without further ado, I'm just gonna continue with the video. If you have something interesting to say, especially the perspective of British people on this and how it's taught in their school, just let me know in the comment section below. Okay, let's jump in.
(1916). Europe is in the grips of the most destructive conflict yet known, World War I. Much of the fiercest fighting takes place on the Western Front, where British, French and German armies are locked in a bloody stalemate along 450 miles of trenches.
Yep.
There have been millions of casualties, but neither side can break the deadlock. The combination of barbed wire, machine guns and heavy artillery means troops trying to cross no man's land, the open ground between the trenches, are slaughtered en masse. The advantage is always with the defender. But the Allies are committed to more attacks.
And it's not only in the First World War, but throughout history, the defender has always the advantage of knowing where all the roads are, knowing the supply lines, knowing the terrain, and having more time to prepare for themselves, knowing where the high grounds are. So it's not just, you know, like the First World War, but military tactics in general.
They're determined to liberate the parts of France and Belgium that were occupied by Germany in the first months of the war. The British and French have agreed to launch a joint offensive in the summer of 1916. But the Germans strike first. In February, they launch a massive assault on the French fortress city of Verdun. Its defense requires all available French reserves. So the summer offensive will be led by the British, their biggest attack of the war so far. Its chief aim now, to relieve pressure on the French at Verdun.
They were talking about the big importance of Verdun. It is not only a big strategic one, but also a symbolical one, because as I have read, they had hinted in the last video, but I don't know all the details, but there is a big citadel in Verdun, which has a big meaning to the national identity of France. So that is also one of the things why the French were so eager to defend Verdun. Verdun. The big push.
The attack will take place along a 25-mile front near the River Somme in July. The new British commander, General Sir Douglas Haig, would prefer to attack near Ypres, where there are clearer strategic objectives. But the Somme is where the British and French armies meet, so where a joint offensive must take place. He would also prefer to wait until his inexperienced divisions have received more training. But the French need his help now.
The First World War was just a big meat grinder. New soldiers coming constantly to the front, and it would be interesting if there was any statistic. What was the life expectancy of a soldier that came to the front? Would he survive a few months, maybe a year? Just imagine to survive the whole war from 1914 till the end. I mean, those were, I think, just a small portion of the troops. It was just crazy.
The Somme has so far been a quiet sector, allowing the Germans to build up strong defensive positions. Here the Germans have two formidable defensive lines, with a third under construction.
Wow, just look at that.
Each consists of 3 lines of trenches, fire, support, and reserve, connected by communication trenches. They bristle with machine gun positions and are anchored on fortified villages and strongpoints. In front of the trenches, there are thick belts of barbed wire. Below are dugouts, some 10 meters deep, to shelter German troops from artillery fire.
Just crazy.
Telephone lines buried 6 feet deep allow troops at the front to communicate with artillery batteries during an attack. The German troops that hold the line are well trained, and most are combat veterans. The offensive will be led by the British Fourth Army, commanded by Lieutenant General Sir Henry Rawlinson. With Haig, he draws up the plan of attack. To overcome the Germans' formidable defences, the British will carry out a massive, week-long artillery bombardment with 1,400 guns. This is expected to destroy German barbed wire, flatten trenches, and kill their occupants.
And not only that, artillery was used to, of course, eliminate high defensive positions of the enemy, but it was also, just imagine yourself, you're a soldier, you're attacking through no man's land, you're constantly under attack from sharpshooters, machine guns, enemy artillery, everything that you can imagine, and you need cover. So the artillery was also used not only to destroy the enemy trenches, but also to make the big craters in the ground so that soldiers can, run for, 50 meters, 70 meters, then go undercover, maybe shoot 1, 2, 3 rounds, and then advance forward. So artillery was used also in that way in the First World War.
Mines are also dug under key German strongpoints and filled with explosive, ready to detonate just before the attack begins.
Okay, so they knew about the attack.
To the north, the British Third Army will make a diversionary attack.
Or at least they expected an attack there.
The 16 British and French infantry divisions are then expected to take their objectives with minimal opposition. The attack will begin at 7:30 a.m. in broad daylight, so the artillery can observe its fire. British morale is high, and the men are confident of victory. Many of the units taking part are PALS battalions, the eager recruits of 1914, now about to face combat for the first time.
What were the PALS battalion? Let me know if you're British or, I didn't read about them. Maybe they're like the ones that first voluntarily joined the war. I would think that they were that.
But on the eve of the assault, there are worrying reports that the British bombardment has been only partially successful. 1.6 million shells are fired. But due to inexperienced gun crews, a shortage of heavy guns, and faulty shells, much of the German barbed wire remains intact. German defenders, too, are largely unscathed in their deep dugouts. And from captured prisoners and listening in on uncoded telephone calls, the Germans know exactly when and where the British are coming.
Okay, so the prelude to the battle or the first attack, the Germans are prepared. They know that they're under attack. The artillery doesn't have much effect. So we can count on a big casualty numbers for the Allies. So, I know the outcome of the battle, but it's crazy. It's crazy. The Allies were, I think, maybe too overconfident.
The Allied artillery bombardment reaches its peak at 7 a.m. At 7:20, the British detonate an enormous mine under a German strongpoint, the Hawthorne Redoubt, and British troops rush forward to occupy the crater.
Okay.
At 7:28, further mines are detonated under German strongpoints along the front. At 7:30, the Allied bombardment moves on to the German second line, as British and French infantry begin their advance across no man's land. German troops, meanwhile, race up from their dugouts to set up machine guns. It's an enduring myth that all the British infantry climb out of their trenches and walk steadily towards the German line.
Why would they?
A few units do, but most send men out into no man's land before the bombardment lifts, so the final dash toward the enemy line is as short as possible. But in the northern sector, whichever tactics are used, the British are easy targets for German machine gunners, especially where they bunch up to get through the few gaps in the barbed wire.
One of the ways that the troops were also removing barbed wire that was placed in the no man's land was also to send small engineer groups to cut the barbed wires and to make holes in them. Not a lot of the engineers went back from the war, so it was a high-risk job. As they stated, the Allies wanted to attack during the day so the artillery could bombard the enemy positions. But what is the counter to that? The enemy can, spot troops from far, far away, gun them down with machine guns, or even better, with sharpshooters. So it's a minus for the Germans, but also a minus for the Brits.
The British infantry advance bravely, but are mown down in their hundreds.
It's just crazy.
Some units do break into the German line. Near Thiepval, the 36th Ulster Division captures the Schwaben redoubt. But without support on either flank, it's isolated, and the survivors are forced to retreat that night.
Whew.
On their right, the 32nd Division takes the Leipzig redoubt, while near La Boisselle, the 34th Division captures the Lochnagar mine crater. But these are just small toeholds in the German line, far short of their objectives.
True. Okay, so for now it's not going as they expected. Definitely not going as they expected.
In World War I, one of the greatest challenges faced by commanders is getting accurate information about the course of the battle. Reliable field radios haven't been invented yet. Telephone lines are regularly cut by shell fire. So officers must turn to messengers, flag signals, light signals, even homing pigeons. None of which
pigeons.
is completely reliable.
I didn't know about the lights, but I knew about the pigeons and messengers. Messengers were also intercepted a lot of the time. Wasn't Adolf also a messenger in the First World War? I think he was also a messenger.
To get around this problem, during an attack, supporting artillery works to a fixed timetable, moving their fire onto the next line of enemy defences at a set time. So when the infantry start their attack, gunners adjust their fire onto the second line of enemy defences.
Okay, logical.
But if the infantry get held up, the supporting fire keeps moving on according to the timetable. The infantry get left behind and are at the mercy of enemy machine guns. Aerial observation by balloons and aircraft can provide valuable information, but rely on good weather and control of the skies. This is why, on the 1st of July, it takes British commanders hours, even days, to find out which attacks have been successful and which have failed. This makes it extremely difficult for them to react to the situation with any speed.
Yep. I mean, just imagine you're sending out a plane to scout for, the advancement of your troops or the retreat of the enemy. Then the plane needs to land, the pilot needs to get all the informations to one officer, then that one officer needs to inform the front and the artillery. So information in that point in time in the First World War was vital, but it lacked speed, definitely.
Further south, there is much greater success. Despite heavy losses, the 21st and 7th Divisions take Mametz and cut off the heavily defended village of Fricourt, which the Germans abandon overnight. On their right, the 18th and 30th Divisions take their objectives, including the village of Montauban, which is secure by 11 a.m. Alongside them, the veteran French 20th Corps also takes its first-day objectives, as well as 2,500 German prisoners. The Germans didn't expect the offensive to extend so far south, and are less well prepared. And, crucially, the Allied bombardment is boosted by French heavy guns, which are much more effective at destroying barbed wire and German strongpoints. At 9:30 a.m., French colonial troops lead the attack south of the Somme River. The French seize all their objectives and take 3,000 more prisoners. Despite success in the south, the first day of the Battle of the Somme is a costly failure for the British. German losses for the day are estimated at 12,000 men. The French lose 7,000, but the British suffer a staggering 57,000 casualties.
Oh my
One-third of them killed.
And not only that, when we talk about British troops at the Battle of Somme, they weren't only from the British mainland, so from the British Isles, but they were also people from the Commonwealth. So you had Canadian troops, Australian troops, New Zealand troops, and the whole mix of different ethnicities that fought for the British side in the Battle of Somme. So it was truly a world war in Europe.
The 1st of July, 1916, becomes the bloodiest day in the history of the British Army. And it's just the first day in a battle that rages for another 4 months, finally ending in November amid freezing rain and mud. By then, the Allies have advanced 10 miles at a cost of 430,000 British casualties.
Oh my God.
200,000 French casualties, and 450,000 German.
As we talked, at this point in time in the war in 1916, oh, I need to turn on the light. Romantic. Wait. Oh my God, I think the light is shining too hard. But okay, as we talk by now, at this point in time in 1916, the Allies have more reserves and men to throw at the Central Powers. But still, I mean, oh my God. The numbers, although I know how high the casualties are, and every year I talk about the First World War, and like the First World War is one of the mainstream topics in history on the internet and widely known. But every single number of this is a person with a life, with a family, with friends, it's just, for me as a European, as I stated in the last video, it's just shocking. It's still shocking.
It makes the Battle of the Somme one of the bloodiest in history. In British popular memory, the Somme is remembered as an unmitigated disaster and tragedy, evidence of the incompetence of British generals and the pointless sacrifice of the gallant soldiers under their command. But to those who fought it and those at home, the Battle of the Somme was seen as a success. Casualties were enormous and hard to bear, but across Europe every warring nation was suffering terrible losses, as all commanders struggled to find an answer to trench warfare. And at the Somme, the British had not only helped save their French ally,
Hello,
who went on to
Scotland.
defeat the Germans at Verdun, but learned vital lessons about how to fight on the Western Front.
And not only in British historiography for the Battle of Somme, I think that World War I in general in Europe, in every country, is seen as did we really need it? With the Second World War, it's unanimously who the bad guys were and who the good guys were. So, like Germany, okay, Italy, well, like you were the bad guys. Okay, sorry Germans, sorry Italians, but it's unanimous. But in the First World War, you're like, okay, Germany had some ambitions, Austria-Hungary had some ambitions. Russia had some ambitions. Every nation had some ambitions. And, you know, like, you don't have a clear evil guy. Although most of the time Germany is presented as the evil guy. But the war starts with the declaration of war sent from Austria-Hungary to Serbia. Germany didn't even start the war, although they were on the side or allied to the nation that started the war. So we don't have a definite evil guy here or a unanimous, you know, like bad country that they had the singular fault of starting World War I.
Of all, the Battle of the Somme had been a costly but necessary wearing down of the German army. An immensely painful but vital step on the long road to victory.
Props to the British troops and all the Allied troops.
Maps and research for this video come from Osprey Publishing's campaign series. Every Osprey book examines a particular battle, campaign, or combat unit in authoritative, meticulous detail.
Yeah, Osprey Publishing is actually always supporting their videos, so big props also to Osprey Publishing. Maybe I'm gonna order some of their books or whatever it is. Okay, as I said, if you have any perspective, interesting take on the World War I topic or the Battle of the Somme, just let me know in the comment section below, because YouTube is international. Every viewer has its own points of view and interesting things to share with us. So just let me know. I'm always interested to learn something new, to hear something new. And yeah, until the next time, see ya. And yeah, if you want to subscribe, just hit the subscribe button. Okay, bye.